Wemby is suspended game 5 and they shift and then Minnesota go in there and get the win, this is going to be one of these moments if Minnesota complete the mission that Wemby is going to look back and have all type of regrets, because I truly believe, and I know I'm rolling with Minnesota in this series, but from what the Spurs been showing me, Wemby in that lineup, they really could go win the championship. But if he's not, Minnesota complete the mission, this is one of those seasons that he's definitely going to have in the back of his mind for the rest of his NBA career.
Victor Wembanyama may have just flipped this entire playoff series upside down. That sounds crazy, especially with how well San Antonio has been playing. But Game 4 turned into a massive problem after Wemby got ejected at the worst possible time against the Timberwolves. This was a game that could have locked the series up with a 3-1 lead. The Spurs had all the energy. They looked like the better team for most of the night. A 3-1 lead would have put them in total control, and most people would have expected San Antonio to wrap things up in 5 and move on to face Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals. That path is still open, but things just got a whole lot more complicated after dropping Game 4. Instead of resting up for OKC, the Spurs are now stuck in a longer fight because of one moment that simply did not need to happen.
Now, Wemby and Naz Reid are getting to it in the painted area. Eventually, that elbow would drop Reid. Wemby checking on himself. Reid is, working the jaw to make sure everything's intact. And yeah, on the replay, even Dylan Harper can't believe it.
The game kept getting more physical, with Wemby taking hits from Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid all night. Then everything blew up fast. Wemby snapped. He threw an elbow at Naz Reid, and just like that, the whole energy of the game changed.
Right, so I thought the call was correct. I thought it should have been a flagrant too. I don't think he should miss a game for that. But this is the growth lever that every superstar needs to go through. Remember when Jordan used to get his head beat in by Detroit?
Yeah.
Like, that's the way you get after a guy like Wemby, who is the most skilled player in the court, but he is still skinny. So you're physical with him. You hit him up, you beat him up, and you get him to react.
Luke Cornett stepped up huge after Wemby got tossed. He walked into a nightmare situation and actually held his own on both ends of the floor. De'Aaron Fox and Stephen Castle also kept fighting and gave the Spurs real energy, with Fox dropping 24 points. But Fox shot just 35% and went 1 for 7 from 3. Some of his shot choices were really questionable during big moments. If San Antonio wants to make a deep run, especially against OKC, Fox has to be way more efficient as that second option next to Wemby. Even with all the chaos, the Spurs stayed close and had real chances to steal the game. The Minnesota had just a little more juice when it mattered most.
We don't complain because we're just going to play. We don't really give a shit, excuse my language. But at some stage, he should be protected, and if not, he's going to have to protect himself, and unfortunately, stuff like that happens.
Then came one of the strangest plays of the night. Chris Finch would not call timeout while Ayo Dosunmu was trapped in the backcourt. With the clock running out, they launched a full-court pass just to avoid the 8-second call. It should have been a free turnover. Fox looked like he had it, but it slipped right through. Then it bounced off Ayo's leg and popped back into his hands like something out of a cartoon. Total madness. Ayo recovered, the Spurs fouled, and just like that, San Antonio's comeback was dead. That final stretch changed everything. The Spurs were right there with a real shot to take control of the whole series. It is hard not to wonder how different things look if Wemby stays on the floor. There is a strong chance San Antonio would be sitting on a 3-1 lead right now. If that happened, Minnesota would have been in serious trouble. The Spurs already proved they can win in Minnesota after taking Game 3 there. Even in a worst-case Game 7, it would have gone back to San Antonio, where the Spurs have been nearly impossible to beat all season. That is why this loss hurts so much. The door was almost closed on Minnesota. Now it is wide open again. I still think San Antonio is a stronger team, and my original prediction was Spurs in 6. Technically, that is still possible, but this is not a situation you want to create against a Timberwolves team that keeps getting tougher as the series goes on. Anthony Edwards is looking more dangerous every single game. This honestly felt like his best playoff performance yet. His knee looked healthier and more explosive than it has all postseason.
Wemby leaving the floor definitely helped open things up, but that growing confidence from Ant is something the Spurs need to watch carefully going forward. And beyond just Edwards, this Timberwolves group just refuses to break. They play hard every possession. They fight for everything. People counted them out against Denver. People counted them out coming into this series too. But Minnesota keeps pushing through and making things uncomfortable for whoever they face. That kind of team becomes very dangerous once they start believing they can win it all. I still believe the Spurs are better and should win this series, but losing Game 4 changed the pressure completely. Instead of closing things out, San Antonio opened the door again, and the biggest reason was Wemby getting himself ejected. The moment he left, everything shifted fast in Minnesota's favor. Now the question is whether the league suspends him. Personally, I do not think it happens, but I would not say it is impossible either. Some people say there is zero chance, but there is absolutely a scenario where the league looks at that play and decides to hand down punishment. If it happens, it probably wouldn't be more than one game, but even one game could be massive for the series.
If Wemby does miss Game 5, the Spurs are in serious trouble. Yes, they survived the game without him against Portland earlier in the playoffs, but Minnesota is a completely different beast. Trying to beat these Wolves without your best player, especially right now with the way this series is trending, is an enormous challenge. To San Antonio's credit, they did not fall apart after the ejection. They kept competing and even built a solid lead in the third quarter with great shooting and aggressive play. But that momentum was tough to sustain as Minnesota's defense adjusted and tightened up. The bigger issue is that the Wolves would have a full game to prepare for a Spurs lineup without Wemby. That changes everything. Wemby is not just a scorer or defender. He changes how teams attack the paint, how rotations work, and how opponents space the floor. Without him, the matchup tilts heavily toward Minnesota. If San Antonio falls behind 3-2, the pressure gets intense fast. The Spurs are talented enough to win back-to-back games, but now you are talking about surviving elimination against a battle-tested Wolves team. A Game 6 on the road in Minnesota would be brutal, especially with how much momentum they are building. What looked easy just a few days ago now feels way more stressful for San Antonio. While all this chaos plays out in the Spurs series, Oklahoma City is sitting in a perfect position. As of Monday, May 11th, the Thunder are on the edge of sweeping the Lakers. OKC has been in control the whole time, and they look ready to lock up the Western Conference Finals tonight. That is a massive edge. The Thunder just get to relax and recover while everyone else keeps grinding. The earliest the Western Conference Finals can start is May 18th, meaning OKC is guaranteed at least a full week off. If the Spurs-Timberwolves series goes to 7 games, it gets pushed back even further to May 20th. That extra rest could be huge, especially for Jalen Williams, as he gets more time to fully heal. Meanwhile, San Antonio is stuck fighting a physical war every other night. The scary part for the Spurs is that Oklahoma City already has so many advantages before the series even tips off. Home court advantage, more playoff experience, the confidence of defending champions. San Antonio proved during the regular season that they can challenge OKC. A lot of people see them as the biggest threat to stopping another Thunder title run. But if the Spurs enter the conference finals worn down and beaten up, that already tough matchup becomes even harder against one of the most physical teams in basketball. This loss is about way more than one playoff game. It could change the entire direction of the Western Conference race. The Spurs need to close this series fast, ideally in 6, because every extra game adds more fatigue and more chances for things to go wrong. Plus, the Wemby suspension question is still hanging over everything. Oklahoma City is sitting there rested and ready while San Antonio and Minnesota keep throwing punches every other night. And if the Spurs do advance, they would be walking straight into one of the toughest playoff environments in the league, where the Thunder have barely lost postseason games in years. At the same time, this cannot all be placed on Wemby alone. De'Aaron Fox going 8 for 23 is not good enough. Julian Champagnie shot 0 for 5 from 3 and scored just 8 points. The team made several costly mistakes late that had nothing to do with the ejection. Losing your best player makes everything harder, but the whole team shares responsibility here. Still, Wemby is the face of this franchise. The expectations are bigger for him. Whenever he comes back, Game 5 or later, the Spurs are going to need a massive response to get back in control of this series. And honestly, he looks like the kind of player who comes back locked in and ready to make a statement after a moment like this. On the Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards took over with 36 points and looked every bit like a superstar. Rudy Gobert controlled the paint with 11 points and 13 rebounds. Julius Randle added 12 points and 3 assists, though the 6 turnovers remain an issue. Jaden McDaniels had 14. Naz Reid gave Minnesota 15 points and 4 assists and deserves serious respect for what he dealt with. He took the elbow from Wemby, rolled his ankle, and absorbed more punishment later in the game. He kept getting knocked around and kept producing. That is toughness. Then there is Mike Conley, who somehow just never slows down. He only played 10 minutes, but still finished with 8 points, 2 assists, and one of the best plus-minus numbers on the entire team. The series is now tied 2-2, and everything feels wide open. A lot depends on what the league decides about Wemby,
but right now, all the pressure is back on San Antonio. Now let us talk Knicks versus Sixers. And yes, I was wrong about that series. I thought Philly would come in with real momentum after beating Boston, but that energy disappeared almost immediately. New York swept them with a brutal 30-point blowout to close it out. These closeout game Knicks are starting to look ridiculous. They crushed Atlanta by nearly 50 earlier in the playoffs, and now they dropped 144 points on Philadelphia like it was nothing. The shooting was insane. 25 made threes tied the NBA playoff record. They shot 57% from the field overall, with 6 players hitting double figures. Deuce McBride had 25, Brunson added 22, and Karl-Anthony Towns finished with 17 points and 10 assists while running the offense smoothly. The biggest thing for New York is how involved Cat has suddenly become. When Mike Brown took over, people expected a stronger connection between Brunson and Towns, similar to what Brown built with Sabonis and Fox in Sacramento. It never fully clicked during the regular season. Then the playoffs started and everything snapped into place. KAT is now attacking, creating, making quick reads, and causing problems all over the floor. That has opened up the entire offense. While Brunson keeps doing his thing, Mikal Bridges quietly had a really strong series too, and the Knicks look like one of the most complete and dangerous teams left in the playoffs. The scary part is they did all of this without OG Anunoby even playing, which means they get to bring him back fresh for the next round. Now New York sits back and waits, while Detroit and Cleveland keep battling. That series is only heading into Game 4. If it goes 7, it would not finish until Sunday. Just like OKC out west, the Knicks are sitting there rested while their future opponents wear each other down. Before the playoffs started, a lot of predictions were about whoever survived Celtics versus Knicks coming out of the East. I picked Boston because they felt safer, but looking back, I probably should have trusted New York from the start. Even during their rough regular season stretches, the Knicks always looked like one of the strongest teams in the conference. Now they are on a completely different level. The defense is sharper, the ball movement is cleaner, the confidence is obvious. They have fully earned this. Even though the Sixers got swept, Embiid actually played well in Game 4. He scored 24 on a perfect 8 for 8 from the field, but Philadelphia just could not match New York's firepower once the Knicks got rolling. Paul George had some good moments this postseason, but in the elimination game, he finished with just 7 points on 3 for 7. That was not nearly enough. Maxey struggled too with 17 points on 6 for 16. Still, Philly has pieces to build around. The Maxey and VJ backcourt combination has real potential. The big question, as always, comes back to Embiid's health. If he stays on the floor, the Sixers stay dangerous, but this series made it very clear there is still a lot of work to be done for Philadelphia overall. The Knicks were simply on another level in every single category. New York is now the clear favorite to come out of the East. That is a wild thing to say given how up and down their season felt at times. And for Knicks fans, the excitement right now must be absolutely out of control, even if the ticket prices are becoming impossible to handle.